welcome back to our next episode of Journey into the Unknown. I, of course, am your host, Emerald Raven, and today we are talking about the Cyclops. So let's go ahead and jump right in. If we want to understand why the Cyclops has survived for thousands of years in human imagination, we have to first stop thinking of it as only a monster and start thinking of it as a warning wearing a body. Because the Cyclops is not frightening only because it's large. Plenty of things are large. Mountains, storms, the sea. All of those things can destroy you, but they do it without intention. The Cyclops, however, is very different. It has intention. It has appetite. It has the ability to choose, and it chooses as though the world exists for one purpose and one purpose only: to be taken. That is why this creature endures. When ancient peoples told stories, they weren't entertaining themselves in the modern sense. They were building memory. They were shaping lessons into images strong enough to survive firelight and time. They were turning fears into figures, so the next generation would recognize danger when it wore a familiar face. The Cyclops is that kind of figure. In the oldest of Greek traditions, the Cyclops are not all the same. Some are divine craftsmen, forged into myths as beings who created power for gods. Others are monstrous shepherds who live in caves. The word itself, circle-eyed, is very simple, almost blunt. And that bluntness matters. A single eye isn't merely an anatomical oddity. It's the symbol of perspective narrowed to a point. One eye sees what is in front of it, but doesn't see what is around it. It doesn't see beyond itself. It doesn't see depth, meaning, consequence, or community. It only sees what can be consumed or controlled. That is a Cyclops' true shape. Physically, the creature is described as a giant, larger than any man, thick and powerful, as though carved from rock. Its shoulders are broad enough to block a doorway. Its arms are heavy, made for lifting and crushing. Its hands are often described as enormous, the kind of hands that don't need tools, because strength is its tool. It moves with the confidence of something that has never learned caution, because caution is learned when you can be hurt. The skin of the Cyclops is frequently described as rough, weathered, hardened by sun and wind. Like someone who lives outdoors and does not soften. Its hair is sometimes described as tangled and thick, sometimes as sparse and coarse, but always as wild, untended, not shaped by human habit. The face is heavy, the brow pronounced, the mouth wide, made for eating rather than speaking, though it is said that Cyclops can speak. That detail is crucial. The Cyclops isn't mindless. It's not an animal acting purely out of instinct. It understands words. It understands requests and customs. It simply rejects them. The single eye is usually placed in the center of the forehead, large and unblinking, and the effect is unsettling even before the creature acts. It feels wrong because it collapses the human face into something simpler, something less nuanced. Two eyes communicate empathy. Two eyes allows a human to see in depth, to read expression, to recognize subtle shifts. A single eye is direct, fixed, and difficult to read. It gives the impression of a gaze that doesn't soften. When you picture the Cyclops, you must picture the environment it chooses. It doesn't live among people. It doesn't build cities. It doesn't join councils or obey kings. It lives in places outside the reach of law, the places where community cannot quickly intervene. In the Odyssey, Polyphemus lives in a cave on an island. That setting is not accidental. Islands are isolated. Caves are enclosed. The Cyclops chooses a home that is difficult to approach and difficult to escape. It is a space defined by control. The cave is the Cyclops' worldview made physical. Once you enter, you are inside someone else's rules. Greek culture placed enormous value on hospitality. There were sacred expectations. If a traveler came to your home, you gave them food, shelter, and safe passage. Hospitality was not just politeness, it was religious obligation. To violate it is to invite divine punishment. The Cyclops violates it immediately and openly. When Odysseus speaks of hospitality, Polyphemus doesn't misunderstand, he just refuses. That refusal is the moment the Cyclops reveals itself as more than a large body. It becomes a moral boundary. It becomes the figure that lives beyond the reach of social order. Polyphemus responds to Odysseus not with negotiation, but with entitlement. The cave is his. The animals are his. The milk and cheese are his. And therefore, the strangers are his as well. He treats them like an object that has wandered into his possession. His violence isn't rage, it's routine. This matters because rage can be reasoned with sometimes. Routine cannot. Routine is what someone does when they believe they are right. The Cyclops eats Odysseus's men, not because he's starving, but because he can. He does it without urgency, without guilt, without even the performance of cruelty. He doesn't stage it, he doesn't taunt, he just eats. And the horror of that is not the gore. The horror is the indifference. This is what it looks like when a being with power doesn't acknowledge the humanity of others. That is the Cyclops as a warning. But to treat the Cyclops only as a lesson about brutality is to miss the deeper function. The Cyclops is also a lesson about isolation. Not the romantic isolation of a hermit who seeks peace, but the corrosive isolation of a being that has never needed community. In Polyphemus's world, there is no reciprocity. There is no mutual aid. There is no consequence delivered by neighbors. There is only the self, the flock, the cave, and the appetite. That is why the Cyclops becomes a symbol of what happens when strength exists without accountability. When Odysseus and his men are trapped, they can't overpower the Cyclops. They can't fight him directly. The story is explicit about this. The Cyclops is far too strong. It's too large. It can lift stones that men can't move. Its strength makes it immune to ordinary heroics. That forced Odysseus to survive through something else. Intelligence, patience, and the ability to see what Cyclopses cannot. This is where the single eye becomes more than a detail. It becomes a weakness. As said before, one eye cannot see depth. It can't track multiple movements. One eye can be blinded, and if it's blinded, the Cyclops becomes helpless in a way that it has never imagined. Odysseus doesn't win by matching strength. He wins by exploiting assumption. The Cyclops assumes people are simple. It assumes they will run in obvious ways. It assumes they're going to panic. And it assumes they cannot outthink it because it's never needed to worry about being outthought. When Odysseus tells the Cyclops his name is nobody, it's not a joke. It's an act of strategic storytelling. He is shaping into language a trap. The Cyclops, despite its intelligence, cannot imagine that language itself can be weaponized against it. It takes word at face value because it's never needed to interpret human subtlety. This is another lesson embedded in the myth. Power without nuance becomes predictable. The blinding of Polyphemus is one of the most famous moments in ancient literature. And it endures because it is not just violence, it's reversal. The Cyclops, which has reduced others to prey, becomes prey to something that it cannot understand. The act is brutal, but the meaning is clear. When the Cyclops loses its eye, it loses its certainty. It loses the one advantage it relied on to control the world. And then something else happens that is easy to overlook. When Polyphemus cries out, other Cyclopses do not come to rescue him. They call to him from outside, and when he tells them nobody is hurting me, they leave. This is often treated as a comedic moment, but it has a much darker implication. The Cyclopses, even as a group, do not function like a community. They don't investigate deeply. They do not offer aid. They do not assume solidarity. They retreat into their own spaces and leave him to his own fate. Isolation is not just Polyphemus's condition, it is his species' condition. That matters because it reinforces the morale structure of the story. The Cyclops is what happens when beings exist without the bonds that human society treat as sacred. No hospitality, no mutual responsibility, no shared law. The Cyclops exists outside of that, and therefore it is vulnerable to the very thing it lacks: cooperation and cunning, shaped by social intelligence. What are my thoughts on the Cyclops? Well, we got a pretty good idea of what it is. And as you heard, I repeated a few times that, the biggest moral of the story is how nearsightedness can really screw you over. Do I believe that the Cyclops exists? Yeah, kinda. Because, in my opinion, somebody saw something that made them create this creature. They didn't just come up with it. There are theories that what sparked the beginning of the Cyclops was a skeleton of an animal that was found. I forget what it was. I think it was some kind of an elephant or something. That apparently, when it's just a skull, it looks like they only have one eye. But for me, I think that any skeleton found with one eye probably did belong to a Cyclops. Do I believe they still exist? Not really. Because I'm sure with all the technology we have today, somebody somewhere would have gotten drone footage, satellite footage, or something of this creature. But I do believe that it existed. I believe it was very dangerous. And I think that the story of Odysseus and Polyphemus is very clear in what it means to get across. Which, as I already stated, is nearsightedness will mess you up every time. You have to be able to look beyond yourself. You have to see everything around you. You have to be able to interpret things in order to survive. Community is everything. Moral values need to find their way back into society today. Because what has happened is each person, not everybody is this way, but a lot of people today are like the Cyclops. Nearsighted, closed-minded, taking everything at face value. But when you open your mind, you open your eyes, you open your heart, you understand that things are not always as they seem. So, did the Cyclops exist? Does it still exist? As usual, I'll let you decide. That's all I have for you guys today. I will see you back here next week for the next episode. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it with your friends. Also, subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to be notified of all future content, because we have a lot more coming. Once you've done that, if you have any experiences with any cryptid or mythical creatures, or if you have any that you would like me to talk about, or if you've had any encounters with the paranormal and would like me to read it out on this page, or on this channel rather, and give my opinion on it, you can send those to me at emeraldravenparanormal@gmail.com, and I will read them out and give my opinion. If you do wish to remain anonymous, please put that in your email so that I know, and I will of course respect that and read it anonymously. Also, head on over to Facebook, follow my page Emerald Raven Mystic, so you can be kept up to date on what new products and books are coming out, as well as where you can find me. I will tell you that as of now, almost every Saturday, you can find me at Rhodes Marketplace in Sandusky, Ohio, about 6 minutes from Cedar Point, offering healings. And we have also started offering ghost hunts there. Our next one will be March 7th, 2026. So if you see this before then, on Facebook you can follow Rhodes Marketplace, and you should be able to find the event where you can sign all the forms and stuff. So until next week, be safe, and remember to never be afraid to spread your wings and soar into the unknown.